Okay, guys, so there's a big question. The question basically falls within um, triple jump short approach versus triple jump long approach. Now, the questions I get asked directly are, hey, I jumped this far from 6 steps, but then when I go to a full approach, I don't jump as far, or I only jump a foot further. Or they may say, from 8 step approach, I can jump 40 feet. How far should I be jumping from a full approach? The honest answer for them is there is no actual answer. Because when you think about it, when you're going slower, you have more time to load the muscle, your quads and hamstrings and glutes, calves, Achilles, and you have more time to generate more force. Now, let's say you're able to lift a lot of weight in the weight room, but you're moving at a slow motion. So now when you go from a 6 step or 8 step approach, you have the time to produce your maximum amount of force. But then when you add in your full approach speeds, you now have less time. So with that less time, you then have less ability to create the overall power you had in that shorter approach. So here's a pogo stick. Within the pogo stick, the athlete, or in this situation, a squirrel, is bouncing up and down. The pogo stick has a spring within it, and that spring loads and releases. And it's going to create a certain amount of force every time. The more time you spend on the ground, the more force the pogo stick can then create. Or the more force you put into it, the compression has to load more. Same thing when it goes to your legs. So the stronger the spring, aka the stronger your legs, the more force and power you're able to create. Now the issue with time, when you add in more speed, you have less time on ground to create that overall power. But also, as you can see in this pendulum, it's swinging back and forth. Now there's a sweet spot. The sweet spot is stacked vertically. Now if you miss that sweet spot, you're then going to be at a sharper angle going forward, within changes your overall technique within your jump, and you have, yes, the power, but then the angles are off. So all these factors come into play. So when you're actually jumping from a full approach, you have less time to create more power, which essentially is that much harder. So typically what athletes will do is shorten their motions. And as they shorten their motions, they're less productive, they're not activating the stretch reflex, and essentially your jump is going to be less. So when it comes to your short to full approach jumps and why they don't convert over, or what they should convert to, you have to eventually start training in the weight room those same fibers, getting off the ground quicker. So incorporating your bounding, incorporating your speed work, and teaching the body how to respond faster is way more important. So now to go further with this concept is, many times athletes have this battle between full squats and quarter squats. I'm a big believer in the preseason, you want to go all the way down to the ground with medium to light weight. What that does is it allows the hips to open up. It adds another level of flexibility in your posterior chain. Then when you get towards the fall part of the season, then you want to work into that full squat to make sure the glutes are activating, the hamstrings are activating, you're really getting a good push. Then while in season, I prefer to mix up between a full squat and a quarter squat. Some days you're working on strength, other days you're working on quickness and getting out of position. Because as you can see, Sheila Hudson, there's very little compression within her legs, and it's completely, or almost completely, a stretch reflex that is popping her back off the ground. Now, if you were to study the triple jump, there are some jumpers that spend more time on the ground, some spend less. For example, Jonathan Edwards, I believe, was about 0.18 time on the ground per jump. Now, do not quote me because I think I saw this somewhere, but his phases was amazing how much time he spent on the ground. Other jumpers may jump spend more time on the ground. Eric Wilson. Eric Wilson is a bigger jumper. He's going to have to create more force in that same amount of time or less. It all comes down to the strength to weight ratio. So, long story short, there is no conversion other than you're going to have to increase the amount of power you can create with less time to incorporate that full approach, and get more distance. If this information was helpful, please subscribe. If you have any questions, write the questions below or send them to info@KeinanBriggs.com.